Hey everyone, my name's Nick Lambert. I'm the CEO of Doc Labs, and today we have another exciting Doc Labs panel. Tonight we're going to be examining digital ID and trust in Europe, the opportunities and challenges of that. So this is a topic around European identity that we've covered in many different angles, I suppose, to date. But today we're going to be looking at this from a unique perspective, which I think is owed a lot to the guests that we have on today. I keep going to say tonight, but it's just tonight where I am, but today. Our esteemed guests are Viky Manaila, who's the Trust Services Director at the Intesi Group. And also we have Vedran Lalic, who is the Digital Transformation and Digital Identity Advisor at the World Bank. So thank you very much for coming on tonight, guys.
Thank you, Nick, for having us.
You're very welcome. Welcome. So those of you that have watched one of these webinars before, you'll be very familiar with the format. So we'll do a Q&A between myself and the guests, and then we'll follow that up with audience questions. If you're in the audience, thank you very much for attending tonight, again today. And if you could ask the questions just within the chat within Riverside, which is the web app that you're watching on. And if whilst you're there, it'd be great just to get some encouragement and to know that you're there and you're listening. So if you could drop us a note with your name and where you're listening from, that would be appreciated. Of course, if you've signed up, we'll be sending out an edited version of the webinar in a few days' time. So that's all the kind of housekeeping duties taken care of. So if we kind of move into some of the kind of questions, but could I first ask you, Viky, to give a brief introduction to yourself and the kind of role that you're currently working in, please?
Yes, sure. So I'm Trust Services Director at Intesi Group, an Italian qualified trust service provider according to eIDAS regulation. And at the same time, I'm the president of Cloud Signature Consortium, a non-profit organization dealing with standards and specifications around cloud-based digital signatures. My professional background is in physics, cryptography, but I have dealt with eIDAS ever since, so I can say I speak and breathe eIDAS. And surely trust is what is concerning me and what I'm trying to build and to keep it because it's more important than ever in professional and private life. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, and trust is, I mean, there's so much content trying to actually figure out what's real and what's not is presenting even more of a challenge. So that definitely resonates. And Vedran, if you could introduce yourself as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. So as you said at the beginning, I'm currently advising for the World Bank on digital identity related issues. Prior to that, I've spent my time in the European Parliament, where I was the head of the cabinet and a policy advisor to the Parliament's European Digital Identity Framework Rapporteur. In that capacity, I was in charge of leading the technical negotiations in front of the European Parliament. And I was also preparing and coordinating the work on the Parliament's report on the European Digital Identity Framework. So it's kind of my segue into this amazing policy area was through that role. So I'll leave it at that.
Great. Yeah, great. Thanks for the insight. Certainly well qualified to talk about this topic, both of you. So kind of just opening this up, and whoever wants to jump in first, we should probably have given you both buzzers or something like that to start this off. But if you could kind of come in an orderly fashion, please. But in terms of eIDAS 2, the kind of regulation that we're about to see kind of fairly soon, probably sometime in 2026, in terms of actually seeing eIDAS technology starting to be used in production, it promises some significant advancements with things like the digital identity wallet that we've been hearing about for many years now. What do you see as the biggest opportunities this presents, both for governments, businesses, and for citizens?
Well, I can start commenting on that. I think The first that will benefit from eIDAS 2, and that was also the goal, are the citizens. Because it was tailored in such a way that now we will have, because we are also citizens, we will have control on our data, personal information, who do we share with, and for what purpose, what are the services that we will get in exchange, and at any time, any point in time, we will no longer need those services. We can withdraw our consent and ask for removal of our data, because today we have seen what happened with the cookies, the regulations around cookies, and citizens are clicking anything just to get rid of, but then they don't have control. They don't even know with which websites or providers they have shared their data. And if you, by curiosity, just open those notifications and see how many providers your data are shared with, is an impressive number for each single web page that we are opening. So we would like, and I'm confident that will be like that, to not get into a similar situation, and to stop having our data spread all over the world. Then, for sure, public administration will be able to deliver better and more efficient services to citizens. So both citizens and public administration again, and private sector, all of them.
Yep. Do you think there's almost an element there, Vicky, of almost trying to save citizens from themselves, by which I mean before they're giving technology, you talked about web browsers and cookies, and they don't know what they're clicking, they just want rid of the thing and they want to do whatever they want to do. And do you think it's then incumbent upon tech providers and legislators to make sure that citizens are just not having to deal with this, because in many cases they don't have the knowledge to really know, or shouldn't maybe even need to know what they're doing? There should be kind of privacy and security built in for them.
Yes, absolutely. That would be ensured by the provision of the regulation, but also from a technical standpoint, because the solutions must be certified and audited to be 100% sure that the providers of the services don't have any visibility on what the users, what the citizens are doing with the credentials they have been issued with, or through the wallet. The wallet issuer won't be able to see, to monitor where the citizens are using the wallet and for what purpose. But I suggest Vedran can comment more on that, because I remember this was a huge argument of discussion in the parliament during the eIDAS 2 regulation works, and he can share more about that.
Sure. So just to jump in, I think Vicky laid out nicely who are going to be the biggest beneficiaries of this new framework. I think my understanding of this kind of advantages has evolved over time. So I think also now what's also an interesting angle for me is that I think digital identity and the digital wallets are increasingly like becoming a great opportunity to basically move away from more noise to more quality and more value for their users. I think when you think about the digital identity solutions, right now the market is quite fragmented. We are in this situation where we still have these kind of passwords, the tokens, the card readers, all these kind of peripheral devices that are part of this digital identity ecosystem. And, because of this fragmentation, there is a lot of kind of inefficiencies in the, if we can call it that way, digital identity supply chain or the value chain. And I think digital wallet kind of is a nice and elegant way to go beyond these kind of frictions and really create a very direct and secure channel for communication, whether it's between the citizens and the governments, or whether it's between the citizens and private sector businesses, or any other kind of channel. Digital wallets are really a nice kind of a vehicle to deliver this kind of value, where you don't have any kind of sort of intermediaries between you. So I think it enables much more kind of streamlined communication. And, this is now a great opportunity to really use this to improve the public services, to grow businesses by having a direct channel to their customers. Onboarding in financial institutions, a great use case. Delivering public services, also a great use case. So I think, the outlook is there, and now it's really up to us to really seize this opportunity.
Yeah, very good. I was going to ask you about the noise, and just initially I was thinking, Vedran, you were speaking, it was about reducing noise for the individual, and that's a benefit to them. But of course, if they're engaging with a government or a private company, they're getting a lot more use of your time as well. So there's a benefit all the way around. Are there any kind of sectors? I know you mentioned, Vedran, about kind of financial services there and some government services. Are there any other sectors or industries that are kind of jumping out to either of you that you think are going to be maybe have some first mover advantage, or industries that maybe are seeing the opportunities in a way that maybe some other industries are lagging behind for whatever reason? But is there anything jumping out to either of you?
Vicky, what are your thoughts? You're much more on the private sector side.
Yeah. Well, I think, yes, in addition to financial sector that will have a huge benefit from implementing these provisions, other sectors that could have advantages as well are related to travel, because we know how much we struggle with boarding passes, tickets, having on all sorts of apps in our mobiles, depending on the flight carrier, and we need when we go in the airport, we need to remember what was the app where I stored the boarding pass and start searching of it. So this is one sector, and for instance, in EWC consortium large-scale pilot, where Intesi Group is part of, we are exploring and piloting specifically this use case, a user journey that is end-to-end through a wallet, from purchasing a flight ticket, creating the boarding pass, showing up at the airport, presenting the boarding pass, getting on the plane, going in other countries or cities, buying tickets for ferry boat, for instance, in Greece, or for museums. So everything end-to-end will happen through this wallet. We have this ambitious plan, and I'm confident that we will succeed.
And I guess the great thing that this type of wallet, where the user is in control, that type of collection of information might horrify us before, because you're thinking who's getting access to all of that data and tracking our movements. But of course, one of the great beauties of EUDI is that obviously the individual retains control over that information, and it gives them all the benefits of seamless travel, like you mentioned. Staying with you as well, Vicky, because I know that obviously within you wear a couple of different hats, and obviously within a kind of big part of your role is you've been instrumental in promoting electronic signatures. and process at a global level. And they build these digital and electronic signatures are complex in that each jurisdiction has different kind of regulations and things to follow. How do you see eIDAS impacting upon what's happening there? Do you think it'll have big changes for providers and impacts upon those types of ecosystems?
There are changes definitely for trust service providers. There are higher requirements, regulatory requirements, compliance, but also there are more liabilities enforced by the new European Digital Identity Framework. And just to give you an example, any infringement of the regulation would trigger penalties for trust service providers. Either they are qualified or non-qualified, the amount is the same and raised to up to 5 million euros. This is a lot. But yes, we are aware that we have to comply, to adapt our services. We are working on that. Is not a walk in the park, I would say, but yes, we are moving forward.
Are you even getting to a point where, and excuse my ignorance here, Vicky, but is it even the case that you could have a digital signature required and someone is using some kind of verifiable credential as a way to sign legal documents? Is something like that what we're imagining in the future?
For instance, how the signature is happening today, either you have already a digital certificate issued by a trust service provider and you use that to generate signatures, or there are solutions that are generating the certificates on the fly based on identity verification on electronic identity verification means. How that will change with the wallet, through the wallet, because that also will give a seamless experience to the user. So you can generate signatures based on the authentication with the wallet. This is one option. So the provider is verifying automatically your PID data based on the electronic identification means, and is issuing automatically the certificate in the background. So the user will not see those interactions, will just confirm that he wants to sign, and based on that confirmation and authorization of the signature, that will happen. In Cloud Signature Consortium, we are working to amend our specification to include also different scenarios for generating signatures with the wallet. We already issued an updated version before Christmas, but in the coming months we will issue 2 new releases, and that will significantly contribute to meet the requirements as a qualified trust service providers for signatures generation with the wallet, but can be implemented by other providers no matter the geographical region and the governance.
Yeah. You made an important point as you're speaking there, Vicky. I think you're talking about abstracting away a lot of the PIDs and things you were mentioning at the time away from the user, because I think that's at these early stages with new technology, we tend to get very, not obsessed, but we get very involved in all the technicalities of how it's all going to work. But of course, what the user wants is they don't want to see any of that. They just want to
They don't care.
They don't care, exactly. They just want to know they're being looked after. And that's interesting. We talked a little bit there, kind of leading up to that, in terms of about the opportunities and for businesses and governments and citizens. We talked about kind of signatures as well, and encapsulating all of these kind of actors, if you will. What are the technical and business transformations required. So, of course, we've talked about things like wallets, a number of consortia ongoing. It seems that they've been going for quite a while now. And so we have some technical differences there. Are there others? And also, what are maybe the business transformations that would need to take place? Vedran, I don't know if you want to try picking that one up.
I would imagine that all these challenges. By the way, sorry to interrupt you, but I was just looking at the chat briefly, and it's just incredible. We have people from pretty much all the corners of the world: Canada, Pakistan, France, United States, Palestine, the UK. So it's pretty incredible. It's great to see such a global coverage. I think this kind of role goes back to this debate around digital transformation of businesses. I think this is kind of one of the, let's say, stepping stones that the businesses should take in order to seize the opportunities that new technologies bring. So I think, for the most part, what this means for businesses is that maybe they'll need to kind of rethink their approach, whether it's to customer engagement, whether it's to, how they go about selling their products and services. I think we here with the wallet, we're just kind of scratching the tip of the iceberg. And I think, eventually as the whole ecosystem evolves, I think we're going to see wallet also taking a much more, let's say, a consumer shape, in a sense that it will, next to offering both public and private services, I think it's also going to become increasingly an omni-channel for business to consumer relationships. And I think it's in that sense, it's poised to really reconfigure and transform the relationships between the consumers and businesses.
Yeah, very good. And I think it's really important as well, and it'd be interesting to get your perspective, but for me, it's really important that who's ever providing the wallets, and we could probably guess who they might be right now, but avoiding that one for now, it's really important, I think, that these wallets have the combination of private and public sector use cases. I think if we get to a stage where you only get public services in these wallets, they'll be used very infrequently just for public services. And I think that it's vital that they combine both public and private sector as well. What are your thoughts, Viky, on the kind of either the process transformations or the technical transformations required that we haven't mentioned already?
Well, definitely the wallet should combine public and private provider services. Otherwise, is not reaching its potential. But I think that the people will expect soon to have service delivered through a wallet. Because I've noticed, for instance, in Italy, there were some analysis and research carried by University Politecnico di Milano, and the consumers' preference moved from digital identity to the wallet, especially for those under 45 years old. So we can expect that in 1 year now, everybody will search for a wallet or to ask to provide through a wallet different pieces of information and credentials, verifiable attributes. There is still a challenge when we think about what is happening when we go outside EU, or what is happening when someone else is coming into EU. So I'm pretty sure that we will have this kind of frictions at the beginning, and we should address very carefully the situation in order to not end up in a wallet silos. Because we know what means and what are the struggles when we try to build information systems, and we build on top of the existing architectures that are outdated, or how much effort is put on that. we can imagine what can happen when the world will be spread with all sorts of wallets and all sorts of credentials. And I'm confident that I'm pretty sure that will happen soon. And we will start when we'll start exchange those information, and we'll counter errors or not acceptance.
Yeah. I wonder if we can be optimistic as well, Vicky, because sometimes, like you saw it with like privacy regulation as well, Europe tends to get very well known for its ability to kind of regulate effectively and quickly because of the kind of centralizing aspect of the EU kind of parliament. And I wonder if because there's a kind of element of first mover advantage with eIDAS, that maybe when other jurisdictions are thinking about how they're going to handle it, they have something to base it on and build it on, and may come up with very comparable or quite similar solutions. So I guess we'll need to see, but maybe we can be optimistic that they will somewhat follow suit in terms of all the trailblazing that the eIDAS has done thus far. Yeah, but maybe I'm an optimist there. Vedran, kind of passing over to you, looking more at the kind of policy and legislative side of things. Obviously, you've been deeply involved in the European Parliament for some time. And the phrase kind of herding cats comes to mind, and I'm not sure if that's accurate, but in terms of trying to kind of manage all the requirements and differences between 27 different member states, what can you learn from that, and how difficult is it to really kind of coordinate efforts amongst all those different populations and people?
Well, I think here, in this kind of European context with 27 member states, I think always the challenge is the fact that, across different policy areas, the starting points of the member states are quite different. So, we obviously have in the EU some member states that have already kind of, are leading this area for many years now. Some are actually only at the beginning of this transformation. So this kind of, I think the challenge was, and this is, I think, hopefully what also an issue that the eIDAS 2 is going to address, is how to bring all these states up to the same level playing field. And those who are lagging behind, how this will be an opportunity for them to accelerate their transformation. And I think here, the fact that we are basically creating also, next to developing this nice idea, we're also developing, a streamlined set of technical requirements and standards that all the member states will have to abide by. And I think, this will also help us reach one of these kind of maybe the biggest, let's say, political goals of the eIDAS 2, which is cross-border interoperability in the European Union. So I think this is a very important element of this reform, if you will. The fact that me as a Croatian citizen will be able to use my digital wallet in any of the European member states. This wasn't a fact so far. We know that there were some hiccups in terms of interoperability with the eIDAS 1. And hopefully with the eIDAS 2, we managed to overcome this barrier. And this is going to create this kind of critical scale of users and will help grow this ecosystem, to a formidable size. And hopefully, with that also come business opportunities for the private sector.
That's interesting, and it's really good to hear that. And what support is, because I've wandered along the road, Vedran. Obviously, you can see the nations that are, economically advanced, good economies, kind of really bustling tech sectors. People like countries like Germany, but I have wondered about smaller EU member states, maybe those with less kind of. Maybe not the finances to put behind the projects, maybe not some of the technical capability amongst its citizens to work with this. What support, are you aware of support that's available beyond kind of documentation and things like that to EU member states that are maybe struggling a little bit and thinking about how am I actually going to implement this regulation that's coming my way?
Well, I think also it's quite interesting to notice that, basically the best performing countries in digital identity in the EU are actually the smaller member states, which is, I think, an interesting contradiction. So countries like Estonia, countries like Denmark, countries like Malta are doing extremely well and have managed really to, over the last 10, 20 years to build up their also digital identity ecosystem, but their innovation capacities, the capacity to innovate, the capacity to be responsive to the market changes, the capacity to integrate technologies both in the public administration and in the private sector. So I think that's an interesting contradiction. And also on the other side, the bigger countries like Germany and France, we see that they're a little bit slower with this transformation. I think, one factor that comes to my mind that maybe explains why the bigger countries are a bit slower to move forward is the fact that, they're facing with the legacy IT systems. And we know that those are painfully difficult to reform, to upgrade, not to mention that they're expensive. Whereas, I think a lot of times these younger member states, if you will, they went forward and implemented it, back in the day, the latest stack, and that gave them kind of let's say, a competitive advantage over these countries that, are struggling with these big and old IT systems. And as I said, it takes time to reform them.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and Estonia are definitely the kind of poster boy or girl of eID, I guess. So yeah, I've heard that before, and that was going to be my guess as to why they don't have the legacy to deal with. They can just almost start from scratch and build something very quickly. So, but that's a really great insight. Kind of moving then into we talked about some of these challenges. Maybe some of the different member states are moving at different paces, and obviously the risks that they bear. Vedran, I know you've obviously been in the space for a very long time, and I've probably conducted lots of different types of analysis on digital ID frameworks. What are the kind of things that worry you, or what are the risks or the weaknesses that you think Europe needs to address, given obviously kind of all the standards and the policies that have been decided and made available so far? What are your concerns for eIDAS and how countries can take this forward?
I think the biggest risk I see at the moment is the kind of fragmented implementation. The fact that we have certain timeline, let's say a base timeline that we're aspiring to, but at the same time, we need to acknowledge that not everybody, not all the member states will be there at the same moment in time. So I think it's going to be crucial to sort of find way to support those member states that need a little bit more time, that maybe they don't have in-house capacity or knowledge on this specific policy area, which is still kind of very niche, but it's growing in importance. But the fact is that a lot of public administrations are really struggling to understand what are the requirements, what kind of requirements they need to satisfy, what are the compliance issues. So I think this kind of just building in-house technical capacity to understand this regulation and to really operationalize it in a way that they have I think the biggest need that I'm seeing at this moment is that they need somebody to really help guide them through this process of alignment with the eIDAS 2. Even the ones that are those member states in the European Union that are very familiar with the eIDAS 1, even for those countries, eIDAS 2 presents like a big kind of a paradigm shift. So I think this kind of structured support, whether it's from the European Commission or for some other kind of international players, international organizations, is going to be crucial moving forward. And again, trying to help create a level playing field and overcome overcoming the fragmented approach to the implementation.
Yeah, understood. And Viky, obviously we've talked a little bit already about kind of trust services, and obviously in your role within Intesi Group, being a qualified trust service provider, are you seeing the eIDAS regulations coming in? Is it enhancing or is it complicating your role as a trust service provider from the company perspective?
I think both.
Okay.
Both situation, yes, is enhancing our role because trust service providers will become critical for the entire ecosystem. We are actually delivering services through the wallet, but also comes with challenges because we need to work to adapt our services. And just to make an example, for the issuance of qualified electronic signatures, eIDAS regulation allowed the verification of identity through electronic identification means level of assurance substantial and high. The revision of the eIDAS regulation restricted that only to level of assurance high. There are a lot of implementations on the market in financial sector, insurance, leasing companies, also within the public administration, where the signatures are generated based on this electronic identification means substantial. Those needs to be changed until May next year. So we have a hard stop in May 2026. What is entailing that? The fact that not only we have to prepare and to adapt our services to discuss with our customers, but at the same time, we need to recertify our services in order to keep the qualified status until that point in time. Now, considering that the numbers, I was looking this morning how many providers, qualified trust service providers issuing only qualified electronic signatures are on the market, are around 170 providers. The number of conformity assessment bodies that are accredited to perform those verifications, to audit those services, is limited to up to 30. So you can imagine that those conformity assessment bodies have to verify more than 170 providers and services in a very short time frame, because I'm witnessing what happened when eIDAS regulation entered into force, and at that point in time, when it became mandatory in 2016, there were not so many trust service providers, but all of them run throughout Europe to find certified conformity assessment body to check their services and to get the qualification status. And the conformity assessment bodies were overwhelmed, literally, in those months before the enters into force. I expect to have a similar situation right now, but we can't mitigate that because there are still some specifications that we are waiting for in order to prepare our services and to adapt them. There are still implementing acts that needs to be published, referencing standards that we have to adjust our services to be compliant with. So is a running against the clock.
It's a race. It's an absolute race. You talked about some of the compliance challenges there, Vicky, in some detail. Are there any steps that organisations can take to mitigate? I'm not going to use the word avoid some of those because it seems that maybe they're unavoidable. But is there anything that you found maybe in your travels, Vicky or Vedran, that you think would help organisations try and navigate all the extra compliance load that they would have?
Yes, well, definitely they need help. definitely that help is needed because even for those existing on the market, there are some nuances of the regulations and of the implementing acts that can be interpreted or are not so clear to them, and they don't know what direction to take, and they still perhaps looking and waiting to see what the others are doing. Yes, it is a very complex framework. So the complexity is really high of the new European Digital Identity Wallet. So yeah, they definitely need help.
And it's new as well, like you said, it's developing quickly, so that makes it hard to keep up with the levels of support that might be required. To that same point, Vedran, kind of just skipping ahead slightly, in terms of looking at businesses and particularly small managed enterprises, or sorry, small and medium-sized enterprises, as they struggle to adapt to these changes, are there support or incentives that governments either can have or can make available to kind of policymakers or policymakers, sorry, to try and make this a little bit easier that you're aware of?
I cannot think of a specific example right now, but I think yes, I mean I agree with Vicky that this is a highly complex piece of legislation, which is not necessarily something that we should be proud of, but it is what it is, and I wish it would have been much more straightforward piece of legislation that can be understood in not in 20 different ways, but in one or two different ways. So I think, with this complexity, always, SMEs are not necessarily the best positioned to really, be at the forefront of adoption to these kind of new ideas. So I think they will be in the business community, maybe the most vulnerable ones, at least in the first stage, just because they don't have the capacity to understand, the implications for compliance of these kinds of solutions. Albeit, I think Vicky, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have sort of in the regulation a provision whereby SMEs are not required to provide access to digital identity wallets if a customer requests it. So I think that was also, we also from the policy perspective understood that the SMEs, versus big companies, are not necessarily well positioned to implement these solutions so quickly. So there was also an effort to leave them out of the scope of application for foreseeable future. And I think that's the idea to also, by leaving them out of the scope, we give them some more time to adjust. But other than that, I think this kind of the need to support the SMEs, I think that's strong in all the European member states, and something that needs to be kind of tackled in a more structured way, I think.
Got it. And it's interesting to hear you say it was not a piece of legislation we should be proud of, and you talked about the complexity of it being one of your main concerns. Like, what would you say is the biggest contributing factor to that complexity, Vedran? Is it because there's lots of different member states involved and there's maybe not a cohesive view of the world, or is it more because it's such a fundamental piece of legislation that it got complex there? Do you have a view on that?
I could go in many different directions. I think one of the things that may be sticking out is the level of technical detail that comes with the eIDAS 2. It's quite substantial. I think also trying to understand how all these different technical requirements and standards, how they come together to essentially provide something that's, a wallet that is, privacy enhancing, a wallet that is at the same time secure to use, a wallet that's interoperable. I think the challenge is going to be precisely there, how to overcome these technical requirements that are pretty high. And I think I completely ascribe to the fact that, the wallet does need to be safe and privacy enhancing for it to be really meaningful to the citizens. But then how to translate this complexity into a product that is easy to use, that is, that you use without too much thinking. And I think this kind of user centricity element, I also see that it was addressed in one of the questions in the chat. I think ultimately the uptake of the wallets will be ultimately judged by how easy it is to use. If you're going to come up with a product that's not intuitive, that's difficult to navigate, I just think that there will be no uptake of these solutions, and maybe the citizens will fly away, and they'll look to private solutions. They'll go back to Apple, to Google, and these publicly issued wallets will not reach their potential because they won't be so easy to use. So I think this user centricity element is also very fundamental.
Agreed. I was wondering if you're sorry, Vicky, please go ahead.
No, I would just want to add to what Vedran said regarding the complexity. I think this complexity is given also by the stakeholders and the actors in the entire ecosystem, because we have the wallet provider, okay? Then we have the digital identity provider, PID provider, personal identity data. Then we have electronic attestation of attributes providers that needs to rely on authentic sources or authoritative sources. Then we have all sorts of credentials. Is not trivial to make all these services coming together into a wallet and to be able to verify on the other side, offering full protection of the citizen, that who is the service provider is requesting only the data that is entitled to ask for a certain service, and to verify that is happening actually. So there are all sorts of requirements that supposedly from technical point of view will be addressed, but we have to work to make the ecosystem sustainable, because there are also provisions like the wallet will be free for citizen, okay? The electronic signatures for non-professional use will be free for citizens, but who is paying for the services that are required to have a very high level of security and privacy and compliance? Yeah, so it's really complex.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've covered the ground I wanted to between ourselves. I thought it'd be good to switch into some audience questions now. So Francisco's been helping to compiling these, and so I would say if it's one that you like the sound of, please feel free to jump in and start to answer. So we have Hans. His question is, how could eIDAS 2 help border controlling organizations and processes like customs, border control, and police? So I don't know who wants to pick that one up.
Yeah, I can pick it up. Yes, will definitely help customs authorities, because, for instance, companies will have company certificate issued in a wallet, and all sorts of attestations for that company's invoices can be issued in a wallet. The payment receipts will be available in a wallet. So those combinations will streamline the interaction between custom control and companies that are importing, exporting, this in the same way for citizens. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Osman's asking for countries that already have eID, and that could be Estonia, for example. I know some of the Nordic regions as well, mobile smart cards based on public key infrastructure. What steps are required from them to transition to a digital ID wallet? And I guess part of that might be contingent upon what do they actually have today and how close is it to the digital ID wallet. But I don't know, Vedran, if you've got a perspective on the work that those countries that already have eID services, what's the requirement on them? They're part way along the road. What else do they need to do?
Well, I think, the idea is that basically, so first of all, for the countries, the eIDAS is only applying to at least the structure of the architecture of the wallet applies only to the countries in the EU. So for those countries that are currently using different identity solutions, such as smart cards or some kind of mobile ID solutions, they can continue obviously using those if they work in international context. I think sort of the opportunity of the wallet is that it can really make those solutions much more, how would I say, comprehensive. So it's not so it's not so much about only identification, but the fact that you can do with the wallet so much more than that. And this goes back also to the question on the, if we talk about transportation and travel segment, it's the wallet is a great tool to basically fight directly identity fraud. There's a lot of attempts to really I think customs and border controls are constantly dealing with fake documentation, and with the wallets you really have a verifiable and high level security, actually verification that the person behind the wallet is actually who he or she claims it is. So I think it's also going to help us address the issue of identity theft and of fake identities. But of course now, I think the biggest threat to that is going to come with artificial intelligence, with the rise of deepfakes. So I think this is kind of the next frontier for digital identity, and I think with the AI, it's going to really kind of transform our notion of digital identity, and I think we need to already start preparing for that. It's going to definitely be a big game changer, and it's going to come much sooner than we think.
Yes, exponentially faster, isn't it? I think as well, like
Yes.
AI, you think about how we are counteracting deep fakes, but I guess on the other side, we might as individuals have AI agents acting and doing things on our behalf, and how they need to be able to identify themselves as well, of course, and potentially let people know that they are acting on our behalf. So that there's a couple of interesting kind of things that we'll need to watch out for there. So Michael R. Nelson gives us his full name. He and his colleagues at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace in Washington are doing a project on why deploying and adopting user-centric digital ID systems has been so hard. And we've talked about user-centric systems a couple of times today, actually. But what are the barriers that you've seen that have been the most problematic to kind of creating, user-focused, user-centric systems?
I can try to answer that. Interoperability definitely is something that we should look very careful at. Acceptance is another issue, because if we talk about widely usage of a service, as I mentioned previously, when you move from one geographical region to another, or from one country to another, you have to be able to prove what you need to prove, or to get services through your wallet. But I think that the one of the most important thing that we have to work at is the awareness of the market. And I'm not referring only to citizens, because they need to understand the benefit of the wallet. They need to understand that it's not a mechanism to survey them or to track them. It's actually the opposite. But also the public administration and the businesses needs to understand how to use the wallet, how to verify simply when someone will show up in I don't know, in a public administration office to request something, and is showing up the wallet and the smartphone. Here, this is my health card, for instance. You can check it. I'm very sure that there will be persons from that public administration doubted. Is this true? Is this accurate? Can I use it? Can I rely my judgment on what is presenting? There is a lot to be done, because otherwise the risk is that we are delivering a solution, we are delivering services, we're working a lot and we spend a lot of money in doing that, but in the end the citizens will not adopt them. It's not mandatory. Just remember, everyone, the citizens are not mandated to take the wallet. It's
yes, a very good point. I was also wondering, as you're speaking there, Vicky, that actually the different comfort levels that individuals have of different ages in using applications, that's going to be a factor for people building and designing these systems, because you're dealing with such a wide range of knowledge, of experience, even down to different devices that they're using, and trying to get that into where it's usable for everyone is highly complex as well. Okay, moving toward the last. So please go ahead. Absolutely.
Yeah, just to come back to this point, I think it's an important question. So, for me, what I see as the biggest barriers for really adoption of these systems is definitely lack of trust and the privacy concerns. I think many individuals are hesitant to use these kinds of tools due to fears of that data misuse, even surveillance or insufficient privacy protections built into them. So I think that's why over the last 3-4 years in the EU we had such I would say very at times heated discussions around privacy, around security, because we really understood that if this is going to take hold, that we need to be we need to build an architecture around these ID systems that are privacy preserving, and I think we really tried our best to take those privacy concerns into full consideration, and that's why maybe this kind of legislative work took a bit longer than expected. Just because there was a lot of debates around privacy concerns. And also, I think also another element is, this kind of the fact that a lot of times, providers of digital wallets are very untransparent about what they do actually with the data, how they manage it, how they store it, how they process it. So I think also going forward, it's going to be crucial, to build this kind of system, where we try to be as transparent as possible about how we manage personal data and how we store it in a responsible way. Luckily, here in the EU, we have the GDPR, so we have some kind of legal framework to preserve our personal data. But whereas in the rest of the world, really, it's still kind of, I think, only starting to slowly kind of catch up with the EU in that respect. And by the way, today is a Data Protection Day, so happy Data Protection Day.
Happy data protection, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, very good point to finish on. I think we're kind of out of time now, so but it's been a really good discussion. So just to kind of recap, looking at digital ID and trust in Europe, opportunities and challenges. And fantastic guest today, Viky Manaila, who is the Trust Services Director at Intesi Group. Viky, many thank you for joining us. Great contribution. Really enjoyed the discussion. And also Vedran Lalic, who's the Digital Transformation and Digital Identity Advisor at the World Bank. Also, thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope the audience did too. And thanks also to them for your participation. That's it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.